Hello everyone. Welcome to Confessions Jury, where people put themselves on the spot, waiting for your judgment. Sit comfortably and listen carefully, as you're about to hear today's cases. You hold the hammer and you apply the law. Let us have your verdict down in the comments section. As always, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Let's head on to our first case. Case 1. Am I the bad person for not trying to make a relationship with my bio dad or his younger kids work after he came back into mine and my sister's life? I, 16M, was raised by my maternal grandparents with my sister, 14F. Our mom died when my sister was 6 months old and our bio dad took off. Our grandparents took us in and have been raising us ever since. I never really thought about my bio dad. I knew he existed and I knew he just left right after Mom died. He didn't even stick around for her funeral. But I never felt like I was missing something by not having him in my life. My sister was more curious than me for sure, but she didn't feel like she wanted him to come back either. Her curiosity was more about why. Our grandparents did tell us before Mom died he had been a pretty devoted dad to us and husband to her. A little over a year ago, he made contact for the first time in 13 years and he asked my grandparents if he could come and see us. They asked us and we didn't want to. Stuff got said, not sure on all the points, only that my grandparents suggested he wait until we were over 18, and he ended up suing for custody of us. We had to talk to a guardian person and the judge, and I told both I didn't want to talk to my bio dad. The judge decided to put us into therapy with our bio dad even after the stuff we said. It's once a week, every week, and we go in person. We've been going since it started. We also have to do 2 meetups a month with him and his family. He's got a wife and 3 more kids 8 and under. Those meetups have been going on for 8-ish months now. I only go to the meetups and attend therapy because I have to. The judge insists on it happening. I told the therapist that's the only reason I'm going. It comes up sometimes because he tries to give us homework to help us form a relationship and I don't do it. To be honest, I go and I sit and only talk sometimes. I have listened to my bio dad explain why he left and why he stayed away for so long. And I believe him, I guess. It just doesn't change what I want. He's also talked about how much his kids have loved getting to spend time with us and how they all hope we can spend more time together in the future. In the last 2 months, there's tension in therapy and during the meetups. It started when my sister corrected the therapist when he called Dad's other kids our younger siblings. She told him I'm her sibling, not those other kids. Our bio dad looked upset by her words and said in another session that he hoped it would change because his younger kids already talk about their older brother and sister. Then I got into a fight with his wife during a meetup. She was trying to blame my grandparents for us not spending time with them sooner, and I told her we hadn't wanted to meet him when he reached out. And then she tried to blame my grandparents for how I felt. She defended her opinion, saying it was in our best interest, and I told her to mind her own business and she was nothing to do with me or my sister. She didn't like it and my bio dad didn't like it, and I refused to apologize because I believe what I said. Then in therapy, my bio dad said he'd like more time with us and was hoping the judge would make that happen next time. I said I didn't want to, and I told him the only reason I'm going to any of this is because the judge is making me. I told him I don't want to be a part of his family and I didn't want to make a relationship work. My sister said she feels the same, and she said she doesn't want to keep in touch with his other kids, which he mentioned in therapy, and his wife and him mentioned at a meetup. I said I felt the same. Bio dad said he felt really disappointed that we wouldn't give him a chance, and he, sorta, begged us to at least give his kids the sibling relationship they wanted. When we didn't say anything to that, the tension got worse. The therapist told us we should try to make things work because most people don't try as hard as he does to make it up. It's not that I hate him, but I just really don't care. My grandparents have us seeing therapists of our own too. I don't hate that therapy. But all of this with bio dad isn't what I want. Am I the bad person for that? What do you guys think? Lay down your ruling in the comments section and let's move on to our next story. Case 2. Am I the bad person for telling my dad his grief doesn't get to dictate the name my wife and I chose for our children? My dad and I, 28M, have a complicated relationship. He was divorced from my mom when I was only a baby and she died when I was very young, 5. He was already remarried and had another child when my mom passed away, and I think he expected with time that I would forget about my mom entirely and assimilate into his new family like they were the only one. There was also a big effort to ignore my grief and to expect me to move on like nothing happened. The only time this was ever truly mentioned was when I was 13 and he sat me down and asked me to ask his wife if she'd adopt me. He told me she wanted to adopt me but didn't want me to get angry at her for asking because I still had a photo of my mom in my bedroom and I talked about her still. During that little talk he made a point of saying his wife had raised me far longer and had done everything a real mother should, so it was time for me to acknowledge her in that role and position in my life and make it official. When I said no, he threw a little tantrum, stomping his foot and pouting before he left the room, and he never mentioned it again. But that strain could be felt. His wife died 3.5 years ago. I was engaged to my wife at the time and we were planning our wedding. 6 months after her death, Dad asked how I could move forward with the wedding planning. I told him I still wanted to get married. He said he couldn't understand it and he thought the wedding would be delayed for years. I told him that wasn't happening. He never said anything about it again, but I now know he held it all in. And now it has come to the surface again. My wife is pregnant with our first child, our daughter, and we have agreed to name her after my mom. My wife wanted a nature name and my mom had a nature name, so it worked perfectly for us. We haven't announced this yet. During a family dinner with my side, one of my siblings asked if we had a name yet. I said maybe. We weren't saying for sure until she was here. My dad said we all know the baby will be named after his late wife and there is no point in hiding it. I told him he didn't know that at all. He lost his temper and told me if I had any respect for our family, that is exactly what I do. He told me he's grieving, my siblings are grieving, and I should take that into consideration. I told him that has nothing to do with what we name our child. He wanted to talk 1:1 and I agreed to do so. He told me if I'm hiding the name like that, then I must be naming my daughter after someone else, likely that woman, and how I was inconsiderate to consider such a thing when his wife had raised me and his wife had died in the last 4 years. He told me a good son would take this into consideration and honor the woman his father loved, the woman who raised him, as her very own. I told him his grief does not get to dictate the name my wife and I choose for our child. I told him my grief didn't seem to matter when I was 5, so why was I supposed to put his adult grief first now? I told him there was going to be no more talking about baby names because it was none of his business. He has since accused me of invalidating his grief and being insensitive to it. Am I the bad person? What do you guys think of this one? Let us know in the comments section and let's move on to our next story. Case 3. Am I the bad person for just refusing to cook for my wife at this point? I am 39 and male. My wife, Jennifer, is 37. We have been married for 8 years, and we have 2 children. I work full-time, and Jennifer is a som. She's a wonderful mother to our children, but one thing that she does not like to do is cook. This works out just fine for me, as I generally get off work by 4:30, and I happen to be a phenomenal cook. My father was a chef, and I've been cooking since I was 10 years old. I also worked as a line cook for several years. Virtually everyone loves my cooking. When we have company, it gets rave reviews. Our children always ask for seconds. I put a lot into it, and I take pride in my cooking skills. The only person who doesn't like it is Jennifer. She complains endlessly. Too salty. Too much pepper. This is undercooked. She also backseat cooks a lot, where I'll be in the kitchen making something, and she won't shut up about what I should be doing differently. The worst part, though, is that she'll frequently insult my cooking and then go get garbage like a Hot Pocket or a frozen dinner from the freezer. Last Wednesday, I made Salisbury steaks with mushroom gravy, cream cheese, mashed potatoes, and roasted asparagus. When I put Jennifer's plate in front of her, she made a disgusted face. She poked at her Salisbury steak for a few seconds and took the tiniest bite imaginable. She then made an exaggerated retching sound, dramatically threw her fork on the plate, and went to heat up a microwave burrito. I just snapped. I didn't say anything at the time because our children were there, but I was completely done. The next day, I made teriyaki bowls with broccoli. Jennifer sat at the table waiting for hers, and I informed her that I was done cooking for her. When she asked why, I told her it's a waste of food and that she should just go have a hot pocket. Jennifer is furious that I won't cook for her, and she says that instead of giving up, I should try a bit harder. I think she should just subsist on whatever microwavable slop she likes and stop complaining. Did I escalate too much here? You've sat down, you've listened. Now, it's time to state your ruling. What is it gonna be? Let us have it down in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more cases like these. In life, we may run, but we can never hide from true justice. Stay safe, everyone.